I want to talk to you about what I call the most attractive business model. It's like the business model canvas, but on steroids. And I'm going to get it into shortly. I just got these, so I wanted to try them out. You don't actually need 3D glasses to be able to build a good strategy and one that's going to work for your business. And I'm going to show you those pieces that you need to be able to put in place so that you know what you need to know and how you can actually visualize a business strategy and how you can kind of see these different components that are super important to being able to produce that digital strategy, that online business strategy that really fundamentally works for you and for your business as well. So I want to talk about the business model canvas, innovated and elevated for strategic thinkers and doers. So to me, that's really important, is how do we understand what it is that, where are we at and what do we want to be able to achieve? And that's really fundamentally what we're doing here is setting the foundation for how you can create a strategic vision for you and your business and your company. And once we get into kind of the workshop portion, I'd love to kind of hear a little bit about you if you've got an opportunity, or if you'd like to share that as well, how you use strategy in your day-to-day business as well, for the short term and the long term also. So why strategy? Why now? What are we here to do? So I'm going to be showing you a couple things, right? How to visually organize your strategy. A lot of us kind of get caught in the perspective that we don't necessarily have one, and even if we do have one, or we say we have one, it's not something that's visual. It's not something that's really easy to grab or to utilize or to find, and to kind of refer to on a regular basis. Because that's one of the things too, is you don't just want to create a strategy that it's there. You've done the dirty work, you've done the hard work to kind of get there, and then suddenly it kind of disappears into the whiteboards or the piles of paper or whatever the case may be rather. So we want to make sure that we visually organize your strategy, right? So it's a quick tool to be able to see and understand and convey and communicate your strategy, all the time, because that becomes the essence of your business, and that becomes, who you are, how you deliver your value, what is that essence of your business. And we want to make sure that you're able to convey that quickly, easily, and that people can understand it quickly and easily as well. We want to look at, what optimize your business, your strategy for what is really important now and what will be important coming up. If we've learned anything from COVID, it's like we do need to be prepared, and perhaps we won't see another pandemic for a while, or hopefully we'll get over this one. But the point is that we need to kind of reflect on that strength in strategy so that we can see and we can tell and we can kind of look for how do we build that foundation. Because businesses that have the strong foundation, yeah, there's going to be rocking of the boat and, a lot of maybe little course corrections here and there, which are obviously very, very important. But fundamentally, we have that understanding, that foundation of what's going to get us through this as well. And we need to be able to reflect on this daily, or regularly at least, to be able to see how these pieces fit together and what we can do for that. We want to create a structure for your brain to see, so that you can kind of compartmentalize what you're good at, right? And how you deliver your value. This is key, because again, sometimes, in the day-to-day business, we kind of forget, what are we actually good at? What are we actually trying to convey here? And how are we going to deliver our value as well? And again, it's okay if the boat rocks a little bit, but as long as we kind of keep moving things forward, with that foundation, with that strategic foundation, we can see that, we can reflect on it, we can go back to it and say, hey, guess what? This is, yeah, we did make that decision, which is okay, but we kind of need to make another course correction back, because this is where we said we're going. And if we don't, then guess what? We'll kind of, be victim to the chaos and victim to the randomness as well in our business and our delivery as well. We want to look at where your value lies and how it is integrated. And this is key, is that we can actually integrate that. And I'm going to show you exactly the differences between these different models and why it's important, and how you can actually reflect upon that, and how you can do that into your operations to deliver your ultimate value as well. And ultimately, we want to find the answers to the how, right? The what, and leading with the why as well. Okay. Strategy is important. It's very effective, but we need to know how to see how, rather, how to do it and what to do as well, which is really good. Sometimes we feel that, hey, we've got this why, we've done kind of that exercise, but how do you then translate that why into the how and the what, which again brings that strategy down to that base level to say, hey, this is something that we need to be able to do, we need to be able to act upon as well as we go also. So the business model canvas, I'm kind of having a what I call a strategy smackdown, right? So I'm going to be going through a few of these. Just the business model canvas today, you know, there's the blue ocean strategy, you know, there's a whole bunch of different business and management type strategies and tools that we're using. And I'm just kind of putting it out there to say, hey, we got it is a good tool, right? It's pretty good. It's pretty progressive. And what it's doing is it's showing, you know, what is the fundamental to your business as well. If you haven't seen it, this is it here, and you can download it from Strategizer. Strategizer, I think that's right. You can download it from there. It's not mine, but what it does is it helps outline some of those key ingredients of your business, right? Your partners, your proposition, your relationships, your customer segments, your revenue streams, and your cost structure. And it's a good model, right? Don't get me wrong. But how do we actually kind of elevate this? How do we rethink this? And how do we innovate on the business model canvas? Because there is a lot that's missing. And perhaps there's also a different way that we can add some new perspectives to this as well as we get into that. One of the things we want to look at, and I'm going to get in, this is all part of what I call the strategy expedition, but we kind of need to decide what mountain that we want to climb, right? Because once we are able to do that, that gives us the opportunity to see, hey, how do we actually map this out? How do we create those opportunities? How do we create that fundamental strategy that works well for us now? Once we have that, that's when we can figure out the what and the why. And so, you know, in the chat, if you've got a second, you know, what mountain are you climbing at this moment? Are you climbing the growth mountain, the perspective mountain, the confidence mountain, the peace mountain? Like, what's important fundamentally to you and your business? And then that's kind of where you can start, because I am going to be going into some of these questions in terms of how do we actually build this mountain for you specifically. So, you know, if you can put it into the chat, are you climbing the growth mountain, perspective, confidence, or peace? And maybe there's others too. I'd love to hear if you feel that there's other mountains that we need to climb as well. This kind of becomes our currency, right? Ultimately, what are we exchanging value for? So we can then sort of compartmentalize growth, we can compartmentalize peace and confidence and perspective as well. So what's our currency? What mountain are we going to be climbing? And how are we going to be doing that? Just let me quickly check the chat here. Where did my chat go? Oh, there we go. Yeah, growth mountain after COVID. Thanks. Peace mountain. Yep. Mental health mountain. Okay, cool. Thanks, Cameron. That's really good. Yeah, so if that's kind of the foundation that we need to overcome, then we can really fundamentally start with that as well, because that's where we need to build this journey and how we're going to get there. And what are we going to do? So I've kind of designed this around the growth mountain, right? Because it gives us a little bit of opportunity to see how do we put these pieces in place? How do we understand what's really important? And also the perspective. Maybe we can shift how we see things and how we understand things and what's important for us to be able to do that as well. And this comes down into what I call the strategy expedition. So typically what we're going through is you can actually categorize it into what I call not I call, but what we know as a safari, right? Or an expedition. And I don't know, has anybody been here on a safari before, like into the Sahara in Africa or into the Antarctica or Arctic or wherever? Has anybody been on a safari? No? Yeah, not many people. But what I like to share is that the safari is basically, it's a guided tour, right? It's fundamentally about observing and seeing. Let's go see the tigers, let's go see the zebras and the giraffes and that kind of stuff, or let's go see the South Pole and penguins at -40. But fundamentally, you have a guide and they bring you in a vehicle or some form of transportation. It's pretty safe journey, right? There's nothing really kind of that might happen that's completely out of the unknown. There's no possibility of chaos, or if so, it's pretty well controlled. And that's just how it's designed. So are we actually doing anything, or are we just kind of looking and seeing? And I liken this to, you know what, I believe that a lot of businesses are kind of in that space where it's just, oh yeah, let's go along for the ride. Let's keep things moving. Let's move forward. Let's understand. Let's see things. But do we actually want to do things? And if we want to do things, then we need to be able to look at how are we creating this expedition of discovery and doing. And that fundamentally is important, because there's just the word, we know the word is a lot harder and a lot tougher because it implies a lot of things. It implies that there is chaos. It implies that there's, misunderstandings. It implies that there's a lot of things hitting us from the front and the side and the back simultaneously as well. But ultimately, what we're doing, right? We're discovering and doing. We're heading on our own. We're going our own path. And as most entrepreneurs or strategy trainers or practitioners know, we want businesses to go their own way, right? That's fundamentally what we believe in and what we want to be able to see and create as well. So there can be a huge distinction between the safari, right, and the expedition. Which one do you want to be part of? Do you want to be part of the safari or the expedition? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and put it into the chat if you've got a chance as well. And one of the fundamental things that we need to look at is, what has a bigger impact? If we looked at some of the great expeditions of the past, how many great safaris of the past do you remember? Not too many, but how many expeditions of the past do you remember? Probably a lot, right? The moon landing, the exploration of the Arctic and Antarctica, the first flight across the Atlantic or the Pacific, or whatever the case may be. These were monumental journeys, right? And the thing is that they didn't just suddenly say, hey, let's cross the Atlantic by plane, or let's go to the South Pole by boat, right? They took a lot of thought. They took a lot of time to create that fundamental strategy up front, so that they were prepared, so that when they do encounter chaos, when they do encounter, things that don't necessarily go the right way, they have that wherewithal to know, okay, we're prepared. We understand the journey. We're able to see what's going on, and we can correct, we can understand, and we can move forward as well. So if you get to that space where it is chaotic, guess what? You have a plan. You've got your strategy. You've got your resources. You've got your people. You've got your tools. You've got your equipment. You can make it. And that's the fundamental understanding. I mean, yes, there have been some big expeditions that have failed, but it wasn't failed for being prepared properly. And that's one of the things that you can look at as well. Is if I was to say to everybody here on this session, right, let's go do a Mount Everest climb, right? How many would actually join me? Would anybody? It's paid for, it's done. You just have to show up at a base camp in Mount Everest. Would you come? And I would gander a guess that most would say no, because guess what? You're not prepared. And even unless you wanted to go on a safari, but then you're kind of missing the point, because the safari is totally different. There's going to be hardship. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be chaotic. And if you're not prepared, then why would you go? So that's exactly what I'm trying to say here, is that if you can prepare properly, then let's go on an expedition. I'm not saying that we're all necessarily ready today to go up Mount Everest, but at least if we're preparing ourselves for that, eventuality, for that chaos, for those challenges, then we can actually move forward. And then that's going to be how we may move forward with that. But what does that need? We need to define your strategy. So if we look at it from a simple model, where are we going? Right now, you might not want to do this. You might decide that, hey, I'm not sure how we're going to be able to do this, or I don't know if I really, really want to. But guess what? If we move into the learning zone, we can educate ourselves. We can understand what we need to be able to progress with. We know the tools, we know the team, we know the resources that we all need. Everything is getting ready to go to this growth, right? Up growth mountain, because ultimately that's where we want to either bring our business, Or if we're a practitioner, strategy practitioner, this is where we want to be able to bring those businesses that we're helping along the way as well. We want to bring them to that growth. We want to be able to bring them to that space that says that, hey, they're ready and they can hit these challenges, and it doesn't matter what chaos comes next. They're ready to move forward from that as well. This is actually all part of, again, what I was talking about is the digital expedition. And this is basically how it fits. Just so you see, there's about 10 base camps that we actually go through. But today, for simplicity, I want to just go through what I call the digital AMPS approach, which is for audience method, process, and story. And these are kind of what creates this foundation to this journey of growth as well, is what pieces do we need to be able to do to get there. And this is important because it gives us kind of this tool that we can then use along the way as well. So just kind of put that in perspective. So let's get into it a bit further. How do you combine multiple visual models into one single model in 3D, right? It's not quite as simple as, you know, taking a piece of paper and putting it into 3D, right? We want to look at the foundation, what it actually means, and how is it important to that. So one of my great mentors, Pythagoras, every triangle is a love triangle when you love triangles. So that's kind of the mountain journey that we're going, you know, which mountain are we, which summit are we going to, which peak are we going to as well. And strategy fundamentally is about your story, right? And this is how we're going to convey this. It's about your story and the journey that captivates your audience as well. So that's what strategy fundamentally comes about. It's how do you convey your story? How do you put these pieces together? How do you understand what really goes on in the business? And as you, again, try to control that chaos and try to, you know, build that that model that really can fundamentally help you as well. So that's what we want to go through and if you love Pythagoras, then you probably love triangles too. They're the new Venn diagram. And then, you know what, I just for fun, I kind of Googled 3D business models to see, hey, does the business model canvas come in 3D? And guess what? It doesn't, other than, again, just a piece of paper that it's a form, but hey, it looks like it's in 3D, right? Fundamentally, again, we're missing that perspective. We're missing, how do these pieces actually integrate and interact with each other? And fundamentally, again, that's what's really important is as well. So I want you to all grab your 3D glasses and put them on. Everybody got their 3D glasses? Come on, put them on. Oh, you didn't get yours. Oh, okay. Well, I might have to send some. If you want me to mail you some 3D glasses, then I'll have to. Then I will for sure. I've got a lot of these here. But the point is, right, is that we don't need something as silly as 3D glasses, because we want to make sure that we integrate this and we utilize it properly so that it works for us, so that we fundamentally can see how this tool works, how this strategy foundation can work for our business. To why? Well, like I said, to define your story and to capture and captivate your audience as well as you take them along this journey. So let's get rid of the 3D glasses, right? We don't need them. They're fun, they're nostalgic, but we don't need them as for everything else. So how do I asked this question earlier, right? But how do you combine multiple visual models into one single model in 3D, right? Well, we need to elevate your models and elevate your thinking and elevate your strategy. Just I want to zoom in here for a second. A lot of the business model canvas is whoop, let me just change that. A lot of the business model canvas is like this, right? So it's linear, it's two-dimensional. What does it do? It actually outlines your choices. It shows some relationships. It gives you some sense of progress. It doesn't quite show you relationships, right? But that's okay. There are a whole lot of other models out there, right? You've probably seen kind of this pyramid model, which is good, again, because what does it show? It shows hierarchy. So you can see that progression. You can see an understanding of how does this affect and what kind of level do you need to get to next and that sort of thing. And this is kind of the iceberg model as well, that you probably see as well. Let's just see, iceberg. Is that how you spell iceberg? Icebergs in Antarctica. Anyway, it creates that, and you've probably seen the waves here, and 90% of what you see is underneath the water and that sort of thing. It's a great model, like it's very visual and that sort of thing. But again, how does it interact? How does it combine all these different pieces together? And then you've probably seen like the unity, the Venn diagrams, right? Which is good because it shows that relationship. It shows you, okay, well, this is how this interacts, and this is how you see this, and this is how this puts it together. And it gives you, also gives you some focus and some relationships as well. So they're all great. But what if we could, combine like a lot of these together? What would that actually do? And if we could, well, can we create relationships? Can we see progress? Can we make some choices? Can we see, again, other relationships in terms of destinations? Can we see a hierarchy? Can we see returns? Can we see curriculum? Can we see timelines? Can we see unity? Can we see evolution? Can we see focus? And can we see relationships, right? So that's fundamentally why this is important, is because it gives you those tools that interact with each other. So it's not just as simple as, again, seeing the business model canvas in 3D. It's actually taking all these different elements to a different perspective, to saying, okay, how do we actually combine these together? And if you're into your math, you've probably heard of a tetrahedron, right? It's a four-sided pyramid, 3 sides with a base as well, or a prism as well. But if we can actually move that, if we can add these strategic elements of these different models and of these different worksheets, what do we get? We get what we call the stratahedron, right? Which is a combination of tetrahedron and strategy. So we can see these different pieces. We can understand how they interact, and we can show them. We can see it. We can touch it. We can pick it up in our hand, and we can see these interactions. We can see the relationships. We can see the choices, right? We can see our curriculum. We can see our hierarchy. We can see the evolution, and we can see the unity as well of all the different pieces. So we're able to combine all these different models into one simple piece that becomes something that you can touch and feel and see, all without the 3D goggles. So that's fundamentally where this comes from, and how we're going to do it is what we're going to talk about next. So we want to be able to put these pieces together. So the way we do that is we want to answer some short questions, right? We want to do some what I call strategy storming to see and decide and understand, how do these pieces actually fit together, and what do they mean, and how do we talk about them, and how do we describe that? And if you've ever done a strategic exercise, some of these might be pretty easy to pull out, but oftentimes, again, it's about refocusing. It's about re-understanding how we put these things together, what's important, and ultimately what's not important as well. And so we want to be able to see that. So we're going to go through these questions coming up. We want to fill out the templates with your answers, and then we want to create something that there is, again, if you don't have the worksheets I gave you, I sent the link to the worksheet. So now might be a good time to pull those up if you can. If you can't, actually, I'll just repost it because some new people have arrived, and welcome. Sorry, I was into full on talking, so I didn't introduce the new people who showed up, but thank you. I'll get to that shortly also. So download the workbook from there, which has the worksheets, some of the blank templates. So ultimately what we want to do is we want to produce a model that's able to be, you can write on it, or we can print them out, and I'll show you how to do that once we're kind of moving along the way as well. You want to be able to then cut it out like this, cut it out from the paper, and then you basically just fold it up. It's a very simple process. You just fold it up, and that becomes your stratahedron with all of the concepts that you've discussed. Thanks, Jeff. I saw that. Jeff has helped in during the private beta testing as well, and has created one. So thanks, and I'd love to hear his thoughts coming up soon as well. So it gives you that, again, that fundamental understanding of what you can do and how you can do it. And then, like I said, you raise it, celebrate and strategize. you've got your 3D strategy model as well. And there is an online app, and I'm going to hopefully have some time to get into that as well. If you don't want to do it manually by writing on the template itself, go to creator.stratahedron.digital, and I'll show you that towards the end as well. So, all right, so this is the main model, and I just want to present this first because it's important that we understand how do these pieces fit together. And if you remember from the strategy expedition, that giant worksheet with the 10 base camps, it's actually built upon what I call the AMPS model, the AMPS approach. So there's 4 elements to being able to do this. The first one is the audience, okay, right? How are you connecting and communicating with your audience? And then I'll break it down in a couple levels. So I'm going to go kind of high level, and then I'm going to kind of dive into each of these sections because there's a fair bit to talk about within each of these triangles as well. So there's the 4 main elements, right? The audience, the method, what is your internal structure to connect? We have our process, which is what steps are critical to succeed. And then finally, we have our story, which is what journey are you bringing your audience on? And when we put all these fundamental pieces together, this is how we kind of create the understanding for our strategy, for our stratahedron, for that foundation again that provides us with that ability to see things in a different perspective. So this is the model that I've used, but as we get into it, you might kind of go through it and say, I need to change this or I need to adjust this. And that's the cool thing about this, right? Is that ultimately this is your model. This is, bespoke. This is customized. This is personalized to you. So the audience, method, process, and story, that's just a template to say, here's how you can start to make it a little bit easier. And as you do more iterations of this, you might kind of reflect on it and go, well, that doesn't quite make sense for me or my audience. The strategy doesn't necessarily tell my story or help me with my journey as well. So we want to be able to be flexible and to be understanding to say, hey, this is important, but I can tweak this. I can, make it a little bit different or, use it a little bit better differently to help other people understand that as well. So it gives you those aspects of what fundamentally is important, but again, what's not important. So you can stop wasting your time that stuff isn't very, very important, or decide how does it actually work for you as well. So that's what we want to look at, is looking at how our audience, and then let's go in the next level down. From there, how do we define, that additional level to say, okay, well, audience is important, but what else do we need to talk about here? Well, in this case, in the AMPS model, we talk about being seen, being heard, and being understood. So how do we subdivide audience to those critical components that are important to being able to produce what it is that you want as well? With the method, what's important here? Well, it's a digital keystone and foundation. We also have digital assets that we need to look at, and we have our digital ecosystem that we need to take care of also. I'll get into these in a bit next. Okay, so then we move on to process, and again, what's really important to our process? And again, in relation to the model, it's value creation. How do we surprise and delight? It's about creating a digital experience, right? Personalized audience experience, that a remarkable online experience, or a remarkable experience if you're not necessarily 100% online, that you can deliver. And then finally, we have to look at digital delivery. So how do we create that on-demand process, those on-demand steps that say, okay, this is what you can do. This is how you can do it very, very quickly as well. And then the last segment, as I said, is story. So what's important in this case, and again, subdividing these concepts, how do we become adaptable? How do we become connected? And how do we become resourceful for that story that we're bringing our audience on? So then we can actually do something effective. We can, again, bring them on this expedition with us as you get into it and as you deliver your value as well. So we've got these 2 levels. We've got the audience, method, process, story, and then around each triangle, we have each of these 3 specific steps as well. Does that make sense so far? Any questions at all? If you do, just please drop them in the chat, and I'll get to them as soon as we can. There's a couple other things that we want to kind of look at. I'll go here first, but this is looking at, these become your content topics, right? So within any strategy, it's important, obviously, to convey that through some concepts and some content and that sort of thing. So that's what these are. These are basically your hashtags to say, hey, this is what the content is typically about, in creating that story for my audience through my strategy as well. And in this case, the example that I use for the AMPS model is what I call the black wire, which is unraveling sort of that big fuzziness of digital and online and transformation. How do we kind of pull that black wire out? Digital genius is basically using and unlocking your expertise in your zone of genius as well. And then digital leadership is how do you actually accentuate this? How do you become that digital leader, or that leader in any case, which is obviously intrinsic to this whole model, but how do we become that over time as well? So that's super important. And then the final elements here, I'll put them in blue, is clarity, competency, and certainty. And these are important. Fundamentally, every business needs to provide that certainty. Every business needs to have that clarity, and every business needs to be competent in certain things as well. So this is actually hardwired into this model. And as you see for the template that I'll show you in a few seconds, it's hardwired into it so that we always know where it is that we're trying to get to. Like the mountain that I was talking to you about earlier, what do we need to be able to get there? Well, we need clarity, certainty, and competency. And then we can actually get to that point as well, which is critical. And that's kind of how the model fits ultimately, is by folding it up, we actually are able to reach that mountain that we want to climb, that summit, as we get into it as well. So, all right, so let's get into strategy storm your ideas. So again, if you've downloaded the worksheets, you'll see this in it. You can type in it, or you can type in your own notes, or whatever the case may be. But I want to go through this fairly quickly, and hopefully after we've gone through the questions, if any one of you would like to kind of speak up and talk about, what you think, or that sort of thing as well. But let's get into this. So element one, remember, was audience. So we want to be able to see, okay, well, what's important? And again, you don't have to, a template is to kind of form your ideas around it. Again, I call it an audience, right? What do you call it? You can keep it as audience if you like, or if you feel you've already have, a lot of businesses actually already have some strategic elements that they've thought of or contemplated or decided upon as well, then now's the time to kind of use those. Now's the time to say, hey, these are the 4 different elements as well. So I've seen some that are really quite different, and they don't cover the audience, method, process, and story. They cover parts of it, but that's okay. So again, this is meant to be flexible to your business itself, to your business model, and the business model that you want to create at the end of the day. But let's go through this in terms of an audience. So how are you connecting and communicating with your audience? What is your one core value that you deliver for your audience that no one else can? So what would you like to call this element? In this case, audience. So if you got a few seconds, please feel free to pop it in the chat. What would you call that? Do you want to keep it as audience, or do you want to call it something different that's important to you and to your business? Audience is good. Yeah, thanks. It kind of helps set the stage. And again, as you kind of go into this, you can actually revise it and refine it. That really, really fits that understanding as well. So within your audience, word or phrase for element one, list the 3 critical concepts or sub-elements that support and convey what you are doing for your audience in this case. So how do you connect and communicate concept 1, 2, and 3? And again, if you've done some strategic planning in the past, you probably have some of this. If you don't, just look at how do you actually deliver that through your audience. And again, feel free to use these words as we get into the online template. It actually uses these as default terms as well, everything that you've seen in the AMPS model, so that you can, it makes the thinking of it a little bit easier to start as well. So fill that out. How do you connect and communicate concept 1, concept 2, and concept 3? Sound good? Everybody got that? Technology translation. Thanks, Joff. That's perfect. So that becomes your high level audience terminology. Is that what you mean? And then you can break it down from there. Yeah, excellent. Okay, cool. And do you have then the three sub elements as well from the technology translation? And if you don't, then that now would be a time to put that into it and intersect between IT and business leaders. Yeah, that makes good sense. Any other comments or questions? Okay, let's keep moving to element 2. And then basically, yeah, this does become a little bit repetitive, but it's important. It's actually quite interesting because a lot of times we think about these things with our business, but we don't necessarily do it or write it down or put it in a method in a methodology that actually sticks or stays there or we remember it, right? And I want to make strategy simple. It doesn't have to be complex. You don't need to read 50 books to kind of help build your strategy. You can kind of do it very, very simply if we kind of break it down. And I think that's where a lot of times we get lost. It's up here, like your strategic thinking ability. It's all up here, but how do you take it down from your brain to something that's really important? And again, that's tangible, that you can see, you can feel, you can understand. It's there. I can come across this, 2 weeks later, and it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Maybe I need to kind of reevaluate what I'm doing today or this week or this month or this quarter or this year as well. So we want to make it simple. We want to make it tangible as well. So that's the purpose here, is to take those ideas down, download them from your brain, from your strategic thinking ability, and say, hey, this is not that hard. Let's just take the time to be able to pull it out, to get it onto a piece of paper so that we can make it memorable and remarkable as well. So element 2, and again, in the AMPS model, I call this the method. And that actually forms the base. That forms the foundation of the pyramid. If you remember, this is the summit. This is the mountain we're climbing, and we have to do it with clarity, competency, and certainty, right? We have to be able to do that. So if we flip up the base, that then becomes, again, as we talked about, our content structure and kind of the underlying method as well. So this could be how you produce your value. What does your internal structure that you use to connect and define your value? What does it look like? How do you express it as well? So this is what I call method. But again, feel free to put in the pieces that are important to you. And then you'll also be able to define these coming up. That comes one of the last things that we do here as well. So that's how that goes. So do you want to call this element your method? Again, if not, feel free to put something else in, but that's what I call it because it works for this specific model, for this journey of transformation, this journey, this strategy expedition as well. So that's really critical. And then let's dive into these ones as well. So for element 2, list the 3 critical concepts or sub-elements. So in this case, I named them digital assets. I call them digital keystone foundations, and I call that a digital ecosystem as well. Whoops. So if you can actually put a magnet on this, and that's what I have there so that it doesn't fall out of your hand. But that's kind of how it fits together as well. So we have our digital assets, we have our keystone foundations, and we have our ecosystem as well. That's really important to being able to convey that value of our business, right? So take a few seconds. If anybody would love to share, I'd love to hear, what do you have for your method? What do you call it if it's something different? What sort of key phrase is important for you and what you're doing and how you're telling your story and telling your through your strategy as well. So if you've got a chance, throw that into the chat as well. All right, so let's keep moving on then. Let's move to element number 3, is what I call, again, the process. So take a look at that. Take a look at what's important to you. What specific steps are critical to succeed? How do you personalize it? How do you surprise and delight? And what is the one core value that you deliver for your audience as well? So do you want to call this a process, or do you want to call that something else? That looks a little better. So what is important for you in process to be able to understand and be able to convey your value as well? So in this case, what we've done is I've called it value creation, I've called it digital experience, and I've called it digital delivery as well. So if anybody would love to share, please tell me, what do you call your element 3, your process? What's important for you? What's important for your clients? What's important for your business as well? And again, if you want to keep it on process, feel free to do so. Cool, Cameron, thanks. The 2 main processes are facilitating engagement and running online events. Okay, perfect. Are those your elements or your sub-elements? Not sure. Okay. Well, you know what? Put them onto the template, and then you'll see how they fit together. So once you actually produce it, you'll be able to see, okay, this interaction doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't fit together. So I need to rotate it. I need to flip it into another of the triangles as well. So keep an open mind when you're doing this. It doesn't have, we're not building a concrete foundation yet. Okay. It takes some time. And that's why this is very important to kind of really build it out and really kind of take some time to thinking about it as well, because that's how you're going to get the most value at the end. Is, yeah, it might seem a little bit cumbersome, but again, if we're able to capture those ideas, and most of them are already there in our heads, it's just a matter of understanding, okay, what's important. I've talked about these before. You've talked about these before in everything you do in your presentations and your posting and your content and everything, but it's just how do we actually articulate that? Let's move on to story now. So what journey are you bringing your audience on? What does it look like, or what can they expect? How do you overcome things? How do you make them the hero of their story? What is the one core value that you deliver for their story? And again, this is really important to see the difference, right? I'll use maybe it's my age, but Gen X. So the analogy, the metaphor I use is you're not Luke Skywalker. As much as we'd love to be, we're Yoda. Right, we're the guide, we're the Sherpa, we're the mentor. We're showing our audience, we're showing our customers how to go through this transformation that we're bringing them on. Right, we need that guide. So the story really fundamentally is about the story that you tell to help them overcome this, to help them in their journey of transformation. Not necessarily yours. I mean, there's again some flexibility here, but that's ultimately what we want to be able to do, is to convey that story that allows our audience to overcome that thing and get to that stage of transformation that we're providing, that we're selling, that through consulting and education and training or product or service and that sort of thing. So that becomes our story. So any thoughts on what you want to call that last element? And that becomes the last element on the bottom right-hand corner as well. What do you want to call that? Perspective. Excellent. Thanks, Marie. Yeah, so if that's a fundamental part of our audience story, then let's nail it. Let's talk about that. Let's put that in everything that we do and everything that we create and everything that we're able to produce as well. So diving down another level, list the 3 critical concepts or sub-elements that convey what you're doing for your audience. So again, I call these being adaptable, connected, and resourceful. What do you call yours? So what do we take from story? Right? Our story is about creating that adaptability for our audience. Our story is about being connected and helping our audience connect. And our story is about understanding how do we create these resources and how do we help them be resourceful in that journey of transformation. So that's the story that we tell to our audience. And then that's how we actually create that through our strategy as well. So any questions on that? Because we're going to move on now in terms of what those 4 elements are, and how you actually put these in place as well. I don't know, Jeff, do you want to kind of maybe just as a quick little comparison, if you feel comfortable, come up and talk about yours? Or
well, I took a different approach. I found this tool incredibly helpful for me to actually break my method down. I have a 12-month program called The Profitable Life, and I had elements of it, but it wasn't really flowing. But by going through this process, I've actually ended up with this. So my Profitable Life program operates from detangling someone's business, designing their business around their life, deploying the systems and processes we've learned, and then dominating their marketplace. So I haven't actually followed the process and story. What I did was I took step 3, the process, and I applied that thinking to the strategic pyramid, as I've been calling it, which isn't as cute as yours, Doyle. And what it's done is it's given me not only the main steps for each one. So I look at detangle. I've got what's working now, what's in front of you, what and where, what's in the rear view mirror. I look at deploy, what's your implementation, how are you going to control your enterprise, how are you going to command your resources. So just taking that's enabled me to get incredibly clear, in fact, so clear that I've actually signed up a number of fairly big ticket people to do the Profitable Life program because I was able to explain it to them. I didn't actually show them the pyramid, but that's something I'm keeping up my sleeve. So I'd say to you that the AMP method is fantastic. And I've gone through that in general for my business and come up with stuff. But the key thing that it helped me solve was when I took process, but I broke my process up into 4 parts and applied it to the pyramid, which has just given me absolute clarity. When I got to talk to someone, what do I get if you work with me? Well, you get this, this, and this, and we do that. And then each step's got this. It's terrific. So I'm a big fan. Plus, I like playing with things. So it's great to have something that size to play with. I mean, the very first one I did was that. I don't know why. For some reason, it shrank down on the paper, and then I ended up with a right size one. So that's like the travel version, and that's the office version. But seriously, it's a brilliant tool, and I've even.
Oh wait, can you show me that again?
Yeah. I've also suggested Doyle he wants to get one made up that we could drop into 3D printers because they're nice.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's kind of the next evolution of this.
Okay.
Yeah, no, cool. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate that. Anybody else want to come and talk about what they've been able to come up with or their answers or how they see it fitting? In terms of, I like how Jeff has taken the process and kind of use that as kind of the ultimate foundation for him, which again, it's meant to be, how do we just organize it so we can compartmentalize it, how we can see it and visualize it, as I mentioned at the beginning. So
Doyle,
yeah.
Can I suggest one of my methods prior to this, which this complements really well, was SOSTEC. It's been created by P.R. Smith back in '99. And then there's a website, Smart Insights, that kind of took that model and translated it into digital marketing. Okay. And part of that is something called the RACE method. So it's describing the customer lifecycle from reaching your target audience to ACT being an interaction or driving those lead generations through to converting to sales and then into that engagement. And a lot of the processes there tie in quite well with this in terms of when we're looking at translating this to the digital experience component is how do you then actually apply that strategy to identify and attract your ideal customers. Okay,
excellent. Do you know what RACE stands for then?
Yeah, reach, act, convert, and engage.
Okay. Oh, cool. That's perfect. Thank you. I'll have to take a look at that. Do you have any comments, Joff, on how this works for you, or how do you see
I think this is a fantastic, because part of the challenge for the small businesses I work with is really unpacking the lean canvas, and some of the questions there are quite hard for them to get clear on their answers. So this complements that structure really well, and it augments it into something that's a bit more tangible and practical for a small business owner to get their head around.
Yeah. Okay. No, cool. Thank you, Joff. Really appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Yeah. Please go ahead. Sorry, Marie. Yeah. Welcome. Yeah.
Hi, Doyle.
Hi.
I looked at this when you sent it to me, and you said, how would you use it? I knew it was going to be useful. I just didn't know at the time how. Until you went through, and what started clicking for me was when you started naming the various elements. I work with people when they get stuck. It is in strategy, And my background is a corporate troubleshooter. And getting people to understand where their issues are is quite difficult at times because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
It's like it's invisible to them. The knowledge is there, but they don't know how to get it out of their head into a physical form to be able to verbalize it. But when I looked at this, I could see how it could be done quite quickly with people because my background in change management, I learned that the one issue that was a problem when we were doing the troubleshooting of change, it goes back to the vision. Every single time. It doesn't matter what area of the company you're dealing with, whether it's from IT to accounts, to finance, to whether it's marketing, operations, it is always the vision that is the fundamental issue underlying the problem. Your system and putting it into the stratahedron is very simple. And when you get to work with people, you can identify very, very quickly what the issue is because they'll all of a sudden, aha, that's where it is. Because they'll get stuck on what point that was that they hadn't qualified correctly.
Yeah.
So I could see how I could use that in a trouble problem-solving issue by getting my clients to work through your stratahedron.
Okay. No, cool. Well, definitely. Yeah. Well, yeah, feel free to test it out and we can chat later as well. In terms of how we can actually do that. I am kind of in a private beta testing right now. So that's one of the things, if you would like to kind of talk about that, there's a Calendly link that'll come up. I'll actually throw it into the chat as well, just so that we can, help you in giving you those tools to be able to do that as well. Right. So if it, no, for sure. So excellent. No, thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate that. And that kind of gives us sort of that structure to say, hey, fundamentally, again, how do we make it simple, right? We don't simplify strategy is ultimately my goal here. It's not so that it's complex. It's not so that you have to go take an MBA or whatever, right? You want something that you can quickly get into it because that's how consulting and entrepreneurship works. Is you need to kind of be very, very nimble and very agile to be able to do that. So how can we actually simplify strategy as well? All right, so let's kind of wrap this up then. I want to go through just quickly the content hashtags. So that was these points here, right? That becomes, it's on your base, right? And it becomes what you're typically going to talk about on a regular basis. It doesn't mean you have to talk about this 100% of the time, but it means that in order for you to convey your concepts of what mountain, what story are you bringing your audience on, what story are you telling, that kind of helps you organize that. So you can say if, 2 months down the road, you get and you're talking about something totally different, which is fine, but see if you can bring it back to the model to say, okay, this is what you should be. Not that that's a bad idea, what you are, but maybe just tweak it a little bit because we said, if we want to get to this mountain peak at the beginning, which mountain are we on? So if we want to get there, we got to keep that consistency as well. Because if we wander, and again, it's okay to wander, it's okay to rock the boat, but sometimes that's done, some things that we can't control. We kind of want to stay on track. Otherwise, we're never going to get to that mountain that we spoke of as well. So that's what the content hashtags do. There are three aspects that are, ask yourself what 3 aspects are fundamental or foundational to you and your audience. So what do you want to discover and demonstrate? So in this case, what I said was, as I explained, the black wire, digital leadership, and digital genius as well. So these kind of underline the concepts that I'm talking about to convey that also. So any comments on hashtags? Again, I'm going to try to wrap up quickly. I know I said an hour, so if you wouldn't mind sticking with me for a few more minutes, we'll wrap up pretty quickly. So if you do need to leave, please, feel free to do so as well. Just before, I'll throw that link in now. If you do need to leave, feel free to, again, grab a time. Would love to talk to you about how do we actually make this work for your business. If we can sit down and just kind of go through it with you so that you can produce one, then again, that's ultimately my goal, is to show you that you can do this. So please, if you'd like, just book a call, and we can talk about how we can actually formalize this for you to make it easier for you so you can see it. And at the end of the day, that's what we'll produce, is the stratahedron, or the strategy pyramid, or the prism. I'm still kind of coming up with a name. So if you have any ideas on that as well, would love to hear that from you. Okay, so I'm just going to take a few more moments, if that's okay, and we'll wrap up and go from there as well. So then fundamentally what I said too is that mountain that we're climbing, right? What is that called, and how are we going to get there? Well, guess what? These are why I kind of hardwired this into the template. It's we need a competency, we need a certainty, and we need a clarity as well. So that keeps us there. But you know what? Feel free to see if these words actually apply to you. And if they don't, then hey, that's okay. Replace them with something that does work as well. So all right, so in the worksheets, this is what there's one of these templates, and they're A4 size, so you can easily print them off. Just print it max paper size as well. And this is where you want to fill it in. Again, you can do this manually, or the next step is I'll show you where you can actually do this with the private beta test web app that I've been developing as well. So this is where we have our audience. Right, so put your keyword in there. This is where we have our method. So again, you can do this manually if you want. It's pretty easy. That helps you, gives you some practice in cutting and pasting, and your story as well. And then you can fill in the sub elements for each of these also. So you have basically 12 pieces of the pie as well that you want to be able to produce. So print it out. Right onto your A4. I use nice heavier cardstock. Then it's pretty easy. Everybody loves cutting, right? When was the last time you did a cutting and drawing project in business? I'd say like close to never, right? So print it out, cut it out. Oh yeah, make sure that you keep the tabs. Okay, that's important. Don't cut these off. And then you fold it, and through the magic of pre-printing, you fold it, and you can use glue or you can use tape sometimes when they're folded properly. Oh no, this one's going to pop, but you get the idea, right? You can hold it together. You can put some glue or a glue stick, whatever the case may be, and then you can use it, like I said, on the magnetic board, or put some magnets in there, and you can post it anywhere you want as well. And if you need to send it to your clients, for example, guess what? It's flat packed. It's like IKEA. It's the IKEA of strategy. You flat pack your strategy, you send it to them, and then they can actually cut it out. And that might be actually a good idea for you, Jeff, as you send your process to them, so they can then, you send it as a flat piece of paper saying, here, cut this out, fold it up. And that's the process that we're going through, as well as part of your welcome kit, or something like that. To be able to do that too. So something to think about, the flat pack of strategy. There you go. All right. Any questions? How are we doing? Don't use Prism because it's not geometrically accurate. Okay, that's a great point, Cameron. I appreciate that.
Sounds like IKEA.
What's that?
Don't use flat pack. It sounds like IKEA.
Okay, I won't. No, thank you for the feedback. Excellent. Okay, so if you do want to be able to do this online, just go to creator.stratahedron.digital. Okay, and there's no cost here. It's a free tool. Like I said, if you want to join the private beta, all you have to do is go create one on your own. It's not that hard. Design it, test it out. Just a few little quirks with it right now. There's no save feature, so if you do create one, you kind of have to recreate it if you want to be able to update it or edit it or that sort of thing. I mean, you go through the whole sheet. I'll actually show it to you at the end. I just want to finish this screen, and then we'll go from there as well. If you want to start with a blank slate, right, a completely blank canvas, and print this out, that's in the workbook as well. It's completely customizable. This is the flat 2D shape to be able to create it into the stratahedron. which is pretty easy. So your business model canvas elevated and evolved, hopefully, for strategic thinkers and doers, right? That's ultimately what we want to be able to do here. Strategic thinking is forward thinking. To fundamentally understand the strategy model of your business, you must begin by reorientating your strategic focus from competitors to alternatives and from customers to non-customers, right? We want to be able to create that story. We want to be able to create that journey that we're taking our audience on. And we want to be able to tell it in a way that creates that transformation for them so that we take them from one level to the next. And in my mind, this is one of the few models that can actually do that, the one that can actually pull all these different models that we're talking about together to be able to say, hey, this is ultimately how we do it. This is how we understand it. This is how we accomplish that. So as you shift your strategic focus from current competition to alternatives and non-customers, you gain insight into how to redefine the problem the industry currently focuses on, and thereby reconstruct your buyer value elements that reside across your industry. There's a whole bunch of other exercises and strategy sprints that I've gone through rather. So if you'd like to, be a part of that, please just let me know. Send me a message on chat or whatever the case may be. Happy to invite you to the next one as well. This is the more formal workshop, right? And then I have the regular weekly strategy sprints as well. So I want to present to you sort of that digital challenge for business. Challenge is another word for opportunity. What does your next 90-day plan have as well? And this is actually, I think, Jeff, you pointed it out, is you can use this as a quarterly review. It's like, did I get through these specific steps as well? And there's whole nother level, and we don't have time today, but you can actually unwind each of these 12 different pieces, and that becomes your roadmap. That becomes your specific execution plan as well. So there's multiple levels to this tool that I'm going to be excited to share coming up as well. As the world adapts and changes, businesses need to adapt, change, and transform with the times, and that requires digital and strategy, right? The knowledge of knowing what your customer is doing, how they're doing it, and what they want to do, and what mission are you on, or rather missing out on, what story are you creating? Challengers should see this as a time for tremendous opportunity as well. So if you like help with this, right, if you'd like to create one for yourself, I'm more than happy to sit down with you. Again, this is just, there's no charge here. This is just to kind of help you build one of these models for you and for your business, to keep it simple. You can book a time with me as well, calendly.com/Doyle Buehler/30 minutes, and happy to walk you through this as well, to give you that customized, tactile, tangible story and strategy roadmap for your business as well. So strategic thinking is forward thinking. I want to leave you with that. Are you a strategic thinker, or are you a strategic doer as well? So a lot of times we think about things, we've got them in our head, but how do we actually do something with it? And by doing something with it, what we're able to do is create a model. We're able to create that foundation that can fundamentally help with us with either our business, if we're an entrepreneur, or if we're a practitioner or a consultant. We can actually convey that, right? We can convey the strategic thinking and how we can, become not just a strategic thinker, but a strategic doer, and use what I call strategic execution as well. So really want to thank you. If you want to reach out, please email me, doyle@depth.digital. And again, I'd love to be able to connect with you to show you exactly how we can do this, and we can test some ideas as well. Just go to calendly.com/Doyle Buehler/30 minutes, and we'll put one together for you. Absolutely free. I just want to get these out there and get this process rolling as well.